Welcome back. We are still talking about Lord of the Rings and how it is a Christian novel in some fashion.
It's a novel that has some Christian themes in it reflecting Tolkien's Catholicism, Catholic faith.
Catholic faith. And why this is a thing that we're going to read and explore during Lent. And so the thing we're now turning to is to ask, so what are these themes? If we're going to argue that there are themes within this text that point the way for us as people of faith.
Right.
What are those themes and why are they the ones that we're going to pay attention to and really focus in on?
And we talked about some of them in the last segment, but the overarching theme, and
Yes.
the one that we really wanted to focus on for this Lent is the idea of fellowship. That is community, whether it's the fellowship of war, or fellowship of the church, or the fellowship of the ring.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I really came to as I was, trying to develop some themes and thinking about this, is that the interesting thing about fellowship is not something that you say, oh, I'm going to choose to hang out with you guys. Well, sometimes it is, but a true fellowship is not one choice, right? A true fellowship is a series of a lot of other choices that you make. The fellowship shapes those choices shape the fellowship.
Yeah.
And so this is the idea of the journey of a fellowship is the journey of the choices that we make in order to be in fellowship with other people. And it's choices that we make, often not knowing what the outcome is. We do them because it's who we are. If you're an honest person, you don't sit down and think, oh, should I be honest? You just do it. Right, and that's some of that story, right?
Yeah.
If your character is to be honest, if your character is to be brave, if your character is to keep your promises, then you do that without whipping out your little thing that says, "What am I supposed to do?"
But it still is a choice that you make,
Yes.
Conscious or unconscious. It is a choice that's made, and that helps to define our story.
And we can also choose to be different, right? You can,
You can in the moment choose. Well, this is the one time I'm going to tell that lie.
the one time you're going to tell that lie, or you can say, "Wow, I get angry a lot. I need to start making choices that keep me from being angry." Or I drink too much. I'm going to make a choice not to drink, right? Or whatever it is. I watch too much television. That's part of one of the things that happens in Lent, right? We think of Lent as the thing that we do in order. Some people think of, oh, I'm giving something up. I'm sacrificing. You're not giving something up. It's a reflection to say, are there things in your life which are destructive to you and to fellowship and to who you want to be. One year for Lent, I gave up hating people on the elevator that come in and push one floor up.
It's a very specific thing to give up.
Well, because you're in there and you get in the elevator and you're all by yourself and you're like, hoo-hoo, I get to go up 20 flights or whatever. And then Bozo comes in and pushes like floor 2. And what I would want to do is go, boom, take the stairs.
This is a very specific thing.
It's I used to work in a building,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
Or in our particular thing, we had internal elevators, and people would get on the 7th floor and push 8, and I'm like, you made me stop twice. And part of me, anyway, you can sort of see why I needed to give this up, and that it was not entirely successful. But
you made the choice. I'm going to give this up because it is self-destructive, not even because it is.
But I like it. It's my ring.
Yeah,
it's my ring.
It is a burden that you don't necessarily want to put down.
I don't necessarily want to put down because see, I'm about to justify why I don't want to put it down.
Of course you are.
But let me give it to you anyway. It's the end of Western civilization that people will no longer walk up one flight.
Mm-hmm. So people talk about giving stuff up for Lent, and they say, I'm sacrificing this thing which I like.
Yes.
And I think we're trying to make the argument that when we talk about sacrifice in Lent, it is about those things which draw us away from God and which draw us away from others people.
Well, I think sort of keeping with this theme that we have for Lent, it's not about giving something up for me.
Yeah.
It's about giving something up for the we, right? For the community. And and you can think of the community as broad or small. And part of it is what keeps you from fellowship from other people, what is destructive of your relationship with God. But I think sometimes there's also, if you give up something that's a habit, that's also the moment that you stop because when you want it, you stop yourself, and that gives you the opportunity to reflect, right? So I think one or both of us might have said, that Lent is about formation, right? So this is what it's not, it's not about punishment. It's about formation. So thinking about, so going back to this idea of fellowship, right? And it's the choices that we make, and using Lent to think about the choices that we make. So, I mean, I've already decided what I'm giving up for Lent this year. I'm going to stop reading the news.
Wow.
Maybe not completely. I'll maybe do like a 15-minute podcast summary, just so if the world was blowing up, I could get to my shelter, but whatever. But
When the zombies are on their way, you have 15
I
minutes.
do. I do want to know that the zombie apocalypse is spreading, because I am ready. That one I'm ready for. But part of it is, and maybe just social media. I haven't decided what, but I've been walking around in a perpetual. Something happens, and just how horrible people are in response to it. And this is not a left-right thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about social media stuff a little bit later. It's on our list. But just people are horrible, and it makes me want to be horrible. Right.
The current trend within social media and news, everything else, is to silo everybody into your own specific space,
Yeah.
so that we can more accurately target you.
But they want to make me angry.
And anger is one of the
They
things that
want me
works.
angry. They're rage baiting me.
Oh yeah.
And I fall right into it.
Anger is a much, much more powerful emotion for controlling your activity and your actions.
So that's what I'm giving up for Lent. You can self-reveal or not. Don't.
I've already given up social media, and people are grumpy about that.
One year I gave up liver, and I was really surprised that I could start eating it again.
How much liver were you eating before? No,
None.
no.
Anyway, so thinking about fellowship and giving stuff up for Lent. But I think, we were talking a little bit about fellowship, and obviously fellowship connects to this idea of community. But I also, not surprisingly, connected with this idea of covenant,
Yes.
right? And covenant is a very important concept in the United Church of Christ, and it was also a very important concept for Hannah Arendt.
Yes.
And I think that we see this in fellowship, that two of the most important things for creating fellowship are choosing promise and choosing to keep those promises, and that's going to come up again and again, and we see a really good example of this at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, when the fellowship forms at the Council of Elrond.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting there arguing about, well, who's going to do this, who's going to do this, who's going to do this, and everyone's like, well, it should be,
Yep.
and then the small voice says, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right? And in the movie, and you and I talked about this before, but
It's not so clear in the book.
it's not so clear in the book. In the movie, well, and then we'll go with him too.
Yeah.
So one person says I will, and then the other person, and this is what a fellowship is, right? A fellowship isn't just a disconnected band. A fellowship is one person saying, well, I'll do this, and then other people saying, I'll go with you. I'll do it together. So it's goal-based, right? It has a purpose. It has a center, but it also has these people who commit themselves to one another, not because they're being forced. No one forces them to. They voluntarily do it. And the example I use of this in maybe a more religious context is Bernice Reagon, who was in Sweet Honey in the Rock, and got her start in the civil rights movement. And NPR did a whole series of the 100 most influential songs of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And one of them was We Shall Overcome. And she was talking about how she, and I'm sure I've told this story before, but how she learned the song as I Shall Overcome.
Yep.
And she said because in the Black church, in the Black community, communal relationships are expressed as the I.
Yes.
And she said it's because, she says, like, if you're sitting there and someone says, well, let's bring some food to feed the people, and you're like, well, it ain't gonna happen, right? It's only when someone says, I'll bring potatoes, I'll do this, that people have to stand up and be willing to commit themselves.
Make the promise.
Make the promise.
Make that covenant saying, okay, this is a thing that's going to happen, and so I will do this.
Yes, and Sam, of course, is the embodiment of I make a promise and I will keep that promise no matter what. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And I'll put a link to that to the Reagon interview if anyone wants to listen to it. But I think that less obvious, and this is Arendt again, and I won't go into too much of the detail in it. But again, we see that in this book, right? Is this idea of forgiveness, right? And that forgiveness is so important to fellowship, is so important to community, in part because if you have people that are going, I'm going to do this, right? Every once in a while they're going to step on toes,
Yeah.
right? And when they step on toes, you can either resent that person forever. Arendt talks about it's possible to commit an act that continues to reverberate until the end of time, right? And sort of think about, like, there are places in the world, I know I've told you this story before. I remember my Uncle Laverne, a good Swede that he was, telling me one time how you could not trust the Danes. Daisy, I know I've told you the story because you're laughing.
Yeah, I've told you this
You could
story.
not trust the Danes.
Just can't trust them.
Cannot trust the Danes, said because they used to come and they would attack on Sunday mornings. They would come in while we were in church because they knew we were going to be in church, and I was just like, I mean, I'm a kid, and I'm just sort of imagining, First Lutheran coming over and attacking, what Atonement Lutheran Church, and just like, oh, those Danes. And it was only when I was an adult that I realized that he was talking about like 1,400 years ago, when the Danish Vikings would come in, the little Swedes would be sitting there. It's like they weren't even Lutheran yet. And they probably weren't really in church. I think he was lying about that. But
it was that built up.
Yeah. So there's these events that happen where I'm not working with you.
And they ripple down through generation
Ripple down through history, through generation. I'm not working with you.
I don't have to have actually experienced one of these Danish people being mean to me to know.
You cannot trust the Danes. And so in order to create fellowship,
we have to forgive.
We have to forgive. We have to let that go. And we see an excellent example of that in this novel with Gimli and Legolas,
yes.
who they are Danes and Swedes, right?
They are unhappy with each other.
Unhappy with each other. They have generations of resentment. And I don't have a quote down here, but I'm sure it'll come up when it shows up in the book, where Gandalf says, "If you guys can't forgive each other right now, then we might go."
Yep.
Because if you can't lay that aside, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that they're able to do, and they do it a couple of times through the course of the novel until they are best buds at the end.
They pick at each other, they snipe at each other, and then it's in Lothlorien where they suddenly are like, all right, we got to be friends, so we will be friends, and they are.
And they are friends, and they are buddies, they are mates,
Yep.
they are fellows. So promise and forgiveness are two important choices that we make in favor of fellowship. To promise to one another, to keep those promises, to be the kind of person that keeps promises.
And on the other hand,
forgiveness.
To forgive when those promises are broken.
So I was kind of looking over here, our schedule, different stuff that we're going to do. Some of the other choices for humility, right? Integrity, choices that reflect and create integrity in people. That is sort of, truth, choosing promise. We already talked about that, choosing forgiveness, servanthood, hope, sacrifice. What have I missed? Restoration. So these are the choices, and throughout this Lent season, we are going to be looking at these choices and exploring how these choices are in the novel, how they impact the choices, and how they impact what happens in the novel.
And from there, again, to ask, how does this impact us? Where do we see ourselves in this story?
Yes.
Where do we choose truth? Where do we choose humility? Where do we choose these things? We are not in this, life and death struggle over a ring.
Right.
But our lives still matter, and the way that we live out these choices still matters.
Yes. So if you're interested in making this journey with us, there are many ways to participate. You can watch the video. Please make comments below. We're more than happy to respond to them. In addition, we will be having Monday discussions, Monday evenings. We're still working on the time, but we'll definitely post it below at the Wheatland County Library, Wheatland Platte County Library in Wheatland. We will have a discussion. If you have questions or anything, you can post them below and we can answer them. And I'm sure there'll be flyers around town. And then, of course, you can join us for worship and fellowship during Lent, for soup and worship on Wednesday. Doing one does not obligate you to any of the others. You can do nothing other than watch the podcast, or nothing other than come on Monday, or nothing other than come on Wednesday. So we invite you to participate in any of this as you see fit.
Dip toes in wherever feels right.
Yes, check the water. But certainly ask questions, and if you have questions, you can also post them privately. There's email that you can contact at both, and that is also below. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.